FM WGHC at gmail.com to get more info. Also on our Facebook page at WGHC 98.3 FM. Don't forget to follow and like our page.
Thank you all for tuning in to WJC 98.3 FM, your voice of music, your station. My name is Jeff Badu, and I'm a licensed certified public accountant. I'm a serial entrepreneur and a wealth multiplier, and I'm the founder and CEO of Badu Enterprises, which is a multinational conglomerate in the finance industry. And what we do is we provide a suite of financial services, including tax preparation, tax planning, credit repair, financial consulting, and things of that nature. So today we'll be going over essentially credit scores. We'll talk a little bit about the different components of your credit score, how you can improve it, things you should avoid, and ultimately how a credit score can truly make a difference. And I'll also share with you a little bit of advice when it comes to managing debt. But before that, let's get into the market report. Now, the stock market is acting a little weird right now. Last week we had a pretty bad week, although interest rates actually went down, which is usually a good thing for stocks. And today, actually, the stock market went down tremendously. So we'll be going through that. But let's get through it right now. So the markets as of August 2nd, 2019, so as of last Friday. So not even a strong labor report could save stocks from tumbling last week, likely in response to President Trump's tweet that he intended to raise tariffs on an additional $300 billion worth of Chinese imports beginning next month. Trading volume spiked last week, as did volatility, with the CBOE Volatility Index hitting its highest level since May. Rising trade tensions between the economic giants sent global stocks reeling while bond prices soared, sending yields plummeting. Each of the benchmark indexes essentially lost at least 2.6% last week, with the NASDAQ falling almost 4%. Oil prices went down 56.17 per barrel to 55.23. Price of COMEX gold went up from 14.1840 to 14.5270. So the Dow Jones so far this year is up 13.54%, so we're still doing pretty good. NASDAQ is up 20.63%. S&P 500 is up 16.96%. Russell 2000 is up 13.73%. And Global Dow is up 9.83%. So basically the stock market went down last week because of the trade tensions and essentially the tariffs, and all those things all affect the stock market. So a few things to keep in mind there. Good news is, or relatively good news is, interest rates did go down, meaning it's cheaper to borrow money, which stimulates the economy a little bit because it allows people to accumulate more funds, and especially the small business community. Small businesses rely heavily on interest rates and things of that nature. Before we get into the main topic, this is Money Talks, where all we talk is money. We're live on WJC 98.3 FM, your voice, your music, your station. If you are tuning in right now, you can essentially dial in. If you have any questions or anything like that, you can post on Facebook Live. We're streaming live on Facebook right now at Jeff Badu. You can find me on Facebook. You can call into the studio line, 773-942-7167. Once again, 773-942-7167. You can check out my personal website, jeffbadu.com, where I post a lot of financial resources. Want to give a shout out to Dion Landry he said, "Hey, what's up, Jeff? God bless." Amen to that. So let's get into credit scores. Most people don't really understand what their credit score is made up of. You know, anytime we so we have quite a few tenants, and anytime we get a new tenant, one of the first questions they ask is, hey, what does my credit score need to be? And I said, well, we don't really look at credit score, we look at the credit report. The report is really what determines what the credit score itself is. So the report matters more than the score itself. You need good credit to optimize cash flow. So if you really want to be successful in life, if you really want to take advantage of real estate deals and things of that nature, you need to have the ability to borrow money, and it requires a good credit score. Now, you don't necessarily have to have the credit score. You can have somebody else who has it, but it's always best to have it when you need it, or when you don't need it, than to not have it when you do need it. So it's good to have good credit at all times. Don't let anybody fool you with that, saying, oh yeah, you can file bankruptcy and things of that nature. No, you can, but it's going to significantly damage your credit score. So you need to have good credit at all times, no matter what. And remember, you can make money borrowing other people's money, or OPM. You know, in real estate, for example, we bought a property where we raised funds from investors. We fixed the property using the money from investors. We sold the property. We made a profit, gave each investor what they requested, and we got to keep a piece of the pie as well, without putting really any of our own money into it. Although OPM is very dangerous if you do not know how to use it. So please, before you use somebody else's money, try to master using your own money first. You cannot be a bad money manager and try to manage other people's money. Like, you cannot improperly manage your own money and expect to properly manage other people's money. So when you use OPM, you have to be extremely careful that you're using it in a proper manner. And understand the time value of money. Sometimes it might be best to take out a loan, especially if you're getting it at a pretty low interest rate, let's say below 5%. Sometimes it's best to take out a loan than paying cash. For example, if you're looking to buy a car and they're financing it for you at 2% interest, 2 to 3% interest, well, it probably makes sense to do that deal because inflation is 2 to 3% anyway. So if inflation is at the same rate as the loan rate, you're better off having that money being invested where you could have paid it off. You're better off investing that money as opposed to, so you're better off taking out the loan and investing the money as opposed to paying all cash. I mean, for some reason, people love, saying, oh, yeah, I paid all cash for this. It's nice, but you have to be smart when it comes to money. Now, if they're charging you 10% interest on a car loan and you have the money in the bank, then you might want to consider paying cash for that car. So it all depends on your credit score. I would say, me personally, I've always had pretty decent credit. So I was able to buy my first condo back in 2015, because I had pretty good credit. I bought some real estate properties using credit. I bought some cars. My car rental business, it would be nothing without my credit. So it is important to be able to leverage. You don't have to take out loans, but it's better to have good credit as opposed to bad credit. And if you don't have good credit, you can go through things such as credit repair. One of the best ways to repair your own credit is to understand the credit. So you need to know the components of the credit score, and you also need to try to fix it. Do some self-fixing first. If you don't pay off your bills on time, then there's no need to go through credit repair, because the repair itself is the fact that you need to pay off your bills on time. So sometimes repair is internally as opposed to externally. Although, if you know that you're at the point where you might need some external help, such as a credit repair professional, we do offer credit repair as a service. We do run a credit repair company. Then it might be time to go out and do that. So some issues in life need to be fixed internally before you get to the external. So if you know that you have trouble paying your bills on time, if you know you have trouble always maxing out your credit cards, well, paying them off won't do anything if you're just going to max them out again anyway. You need to find a strategy to be able to completely wipe out that debt. And understand there's a difference between good debt and bad debt. Some may disagree, but that's just everyone has their own opinion. Good debt is money. Good debt is debt that makes you money. Bad debt is debt that takes away money. It's real simple. So, credit card debt that you're using for personal reasons, usually bad debt. especially if they carry an interest. Most credit card nowadays, they start you off at 0% interest for up to 24 months. That's good debt, in my opinion. But the minute interest starts on that card and you've been abusing that card and using it for personal reasons and not paying it off, then it becomes bad debt. If you're using this card to invest and keyword, you can make money in that investment, then that's good debt. So understand that the reason why a lot of people say all debt is bad is because they've probably been mismanaging the debt in the first place. Well, if you've been traumatized with debt, of course you're going to call all debt bad debt. I mean, that's just like being in relationships. If that guy has been cheating on you and you leave him and then you go to the next guy and that guy cheats on you, then you're going to be traumatized and think all men are bad, although knowing that there's some good men out there. So it's the same concept. Sometimes you just, you go through certain experiences in life, and hopefully nobody's going through the experiences that I just mentioned. Once again, this is Money Talks, where all we talk is money. So there are three major credit reporting agencies out there, which are Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. Each of these reporting agencies can report different things on your credit report, and that's how your credit score is ultimately determined. These people do make money. They sell this information to companies like JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, all these big-time companies, or even smaller companies. They sell your information in order to make money because these banks need that information to make good decisions on your lending needs. So let's talk about the 6 components to a person's credit score. Now, keep in mind, we're talking personal credit. We can do a segment on business credit, perhaps maybe even next week. You know what? I think that might be a good idea. Let's just go ahead and do a segment on business credit, and we'll do that next week or even the next time we chat. So we'll do a business credit presentation. So the 6 components when it comes to a person's personal credit. First one is credit card utilization, which has a very high impact factor. About 35% of your credit score is made up of credit card utilization. So guess what happens when you don't have a credit card, or you have 0% utilization, or you don't have any utilization, or it shows NA? Well, that's potentially 35% of your credit score you're missing out on. So how do you have no credit? It's probably because you don't have a credit card. Now, am I saying get a credit card? Yes, I am saying it. Absolutely. If you don't have a credit card right now, you should. Am I saying use that credit card? Well, it depends on your habits. So let's talk about it for a second. Take your credit card balance and essentially divide it by your credit limit. So let's say you go to the store, you use $200 on that card. It has a $1,000 limit, or your utilization rate is 20%. Now keep in mind, the credit card utilization rate is determined on the statement date, not the payment date. So there's 2 due dates you have to keep in mind when it comes to credit cards. There's the payment due date, and then there's the statement date. If you're just paying it by the payment due date and not the statement date, so let's say you paid it by the payment due date and you swiped again that same day, well, your utilization is going to be the same because the credit bureaus determine it based off your statement date, not the payment date. Of course, pay the bill on time, but you have to make sure if you're using a strategy where you're boosting your credit score, you pay off the credit card by the statement date. So, credit card balance divided by utilization, credit card balance divided by credit limit is utilization ratio. Real simple formula. And remember, some banks report on different, they report balances on different days other than the statement date. There's only one bank that I know of that does this, which is JP Morgan Chase. Every other bank that I've worked with does not do this. Chase reports on the date that you pay if you pay in full. So a lot of banks, they just report on a statement date. JP Morgan Chase, as long as you've paid it off in full, they report it on that specific date, which is a good reason why you should like Chase. And if you're looking to maximize your credit score, then don't leave a balance on the card, or leave a very small balance, let's say $20. In my opinion, don't leave any balance on the card. So you get a credit card. Let's say even if the limit is small, $500, $300, you go to the store one time, and every month you go to the store one time, you swipe the card, you go home, you pay off the card. If you do that consistently, you will boost your credit score, and that's just starting out. A credit card can be a gift and a curse, certainly. So you definitely want to be sure to watch out. It's best to avoid paying interest. In my opinion, nobody should be paying interest unless the interest you earn, let's say it's an investment, the interest you earn is greater than the interest you're paying. When it comes to personal credit cards, don't pay interest. The reason why is because interest rates are high. They can range from 10% all the way up to about 30%. I've seen a credit card with a 30% interest rate. So don't pay interest. How do you avoid paying interest? You clear the balance by the statement date. You have to make sure you do that. If anything, stay below 30% utilization ratio or 30% utilization rate. So essentially, if you have a card that has a limit of $1,000, do not use more than $300, or do not leave a balance on it by the statement date of $300 or more. Stay below the 30% utilization rate. If anything, try to stay below 10%, and that's how you boost your credit score. Some cards offer 0%, as mentioned before, 0% interest to entice you to use that card to its maximum, and then once that interest hits, boom, there goes all the interest right there. The lower your ratio, the higher your credit score. Second factor, payment history. And by the way, I personally use credit cards as an investment strategy for the 0% interest rate factor. So, prime example, we went to Gary, Indiana. We bought a few properties using the 0% interest rate credit card. It had a $10,000 limit on the card. We took about $9,000. We went to Gary, Indiana, and we bought 10 properties. We ended up with about 3 properties. And we basically paid off the card. You know, some properties we made money because the seller paid us back. Some properties we just outright lost because they were burned or something happened. But at the same time, we made money because we utilized a 0% interest rate credit card, and we got to keep some of the properties as well. So it could be an investment strategy, you know, but always remember, know what you're doing. If anything, in my opinion, before you do something that's new, try to shadow somebody or try to ask somebody some questions before you go out and do it, because it's much better to learn from the mistakes of others than your own mistakes. So please, before you do any of this investment stuff, try to ask somebody or try to educate yourself. And then if you can find somebody to shadow, you know, please go ahead and do that. Most people are willing to share what it is that, you know, the mistakes they made and things of that nature. Or if anything, you pay for a coach. Second factor is payment history. Big time factor right here. Probably about 30% of your credit score is made up of payment history. So you have to pay your bills on time. At a minimum, you got to pay your debts on time. And on time, they really mean within 30 days of the due date. But try to pay it on time by the due date. So on-time payments, payment history is based off how many on-time payments you make. You should never miss a payment. 100% payment history is ideal. Try to keep your payments 100%. Solid payment history. And by 100%, they mean that you pay it off within 30 days of the due date. You know, so try to pay it off. If you have a Chase credit card bill, try to pay it off within 30 days of the due date or by the due date. So they cannot report on the credit. They cannot report as a late payment if it's paid within 30 days of the due date. If it's after, they will immediately report on the 31st day. And that's going to show as a late payment, meaning your payment history will not be 100%. So you have to pay your bills on time. One missed payment can significantly hurt and damage your credit score. Set up automatic payments. If anything, to avoid missing payment or forgetting about a payment, try to set up automatic payments and please monitor those payments. If you know that that checking account doesn't have money to, you know, make the payment, then please put money in there and then make sure that it's paid and it's cleared. It'll save you a lot of trouble. Try to automate your life. You know, so that's something that that can help you out. The higher the payment history, the higher the credit score. Real simple. Next thing is derogatory marks. Now this is big right here as well. It's also a high impact factor on your credit report. Collections, bankruptcies, judgments, tax liens, foreclosures, things of that nature are no-nos. You know, not good at all when it comes to your credit report. So please try to avoid these things on your credit. Anything that's about to go in collections, please try to solve it immediately. At a bare minimum, call the collections company and try to settle a payment amount where you pay it right away, or they'll be willing to negotiate with you because, hey, it's better for them to collect something than nothing. You know, these collection companies, they make money based off how much you pay, and they earn a commission off that. So it's better for them to earn something better than nothing. You know, absolutely want to avoid all these at all costs. You definitely don't want to get involved when it comes to collections and things of that nature. Please pay your tax bills on time. They can. There is basically a rumor out there that the IRS cannot report on your credit report, which is technically true. There's a new law really that came out, but please just don't even let it get to that point. Just at a minimum, just try to set up a payment plan. They have items such as offer and compromise. If you need help, if you need the full-blown list, just reach out to me, and I'll be able to help you out. I personally can help you settle tax debts. We've had people who owed $100,000, settled it for $10,000, or they owed $10,000, settled it for $1,000, or sometimes even zero because the IRS said, "Hey, you can't even pay us, so we'll just do some sort of offer," or they might request some sort of small payment just so they can collect something. Derogatory marks stay on your credit report for about 7 years unless you go through a credit repair process to remove it. The less derogatory marks, or no derogatory marks at all, the higher your credit score. So try to stay away from derogatory marks. The most ideal derogatory mark number is 0. So do not have any derogatory marks. Me personally, I check my credit score every single day because I want to make sure that even if the slightest hint of forgetting about something, I want to make sure that it's not forgotten about and every bill is paid on time. I don't have anybody chasing after me or anything like that. No bankruptcies, outstanding tax bills. Everything is all settled. So you have to be very responsible when it comes to your credit report and credit score. Remember, the credit report is what determines your credit score. So please pay attention to the credit report as opposed to the score itself. You can have plenty of credit scores, which we'll be talking about that later in this segment. Next factor is age of credit history, which has a medium impact factor. The more loans you have, the better for your credit history. Keep your accounts open for as long as possible to build up good credit history. So banks love to see that you have a nice mix. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that age of credit history includes both So age of credit history essentially takes into account all your open credits that's out there. So try to keep them open. Even if it has zero balance, just try to keep them open. One of the worst things you can do is close down a credit card because it reduces your utilization, or it reduces your credit limit, which essentially reduces your utilization or increases your utilization ratio. So try to keep your accounts open as long as possible. Use sound judgment when deciding which loans to keep. If it's a high interest rate loan, there's no sense of keeping it. If it's a credit card that's revolving and it's zero balance and a high credit limit, there's no sense of paying it. There's no sense of closing it. If anything, remember, when it comes to credit, it's better to have it when you don't even need it than to not have it when you do need it. Trust me. I personally have felt this pain before in my past. And don't pay off interest-free loans. There's no sense of paying off an interest-free loan. Trust me. You can find something better to do with that money. Inflation at a minimum is 2 to 3%. So if you're paying off a 0% interest rate loan, you're literally losing money. Even if you hate loans, trust me. And then student loans also, sometimes they give you benefits, so you can write off your student loan interest on your tax return. Things of that nature, you always want to keep that in mind. Now, if your student loan is of high interest, and then you can't write it off, and it's damaging your credit, then please, by all means, pay it off. So you have to use sound judgment when it comes to credit reports, credit scores, and loans and things of that nature. So my advice: pay off the loans that carry the highest interest rates first. Such as outstanding credit card debt. Credit card debt is usually the one you should tackle the most. And as far as paying off credit cards, if you have several, use the snowball method, where essentially what you're doing is you are paying off the lower balances first. So you're making minimum payments as normal towards each card. You always want to make your minimum payments. But what you're also doing is you're accelerating payments for the lowest balance first, so that as the more you're paying it off, you're chunking, you're paying it off. So instead of just a minimum payment of $50 a month, you're doing $100, and then that card eventually gets paid off faster. Then you're going to take that same $100 and apply it to the next one because you don't have any use, quote unquote, for that 100 anyway, because you were using it to pay off a credit card. So why not take that 100 and add it to the minimum payment or even more of the next card that has the second lowest balance? So it's a snowball method. Basically, snowballs get bigger. So the goal is to tackle the smaller ones first and then go to the bigger ones, and you use the money that you would have used to pay off the smaller ones towards the bigger ones. It's a snowball method. I've used it before, back some time ago, a few years ago. I've personally used it before, and it works like a charm. Trust me. All the credit cards were paid off, and everything was all good after that. And then, so in my opinion, loans you should keep from best to worst are interest-free loans. That's certainly one. Student loans are number two. Mortgage. Mortgage is not a bad loan to have, but it can carry really, really high interest. Effectively, you might think that you're paying 6% for a mortgage, but effectively you're paying about 80% in the first few years of a mortgage because of something called accrued. Basically, there's simple interest versus compound interest. Compound interest is money that builds over time. It carries a snowball effect. Simple interest is you're paying the same interest rate every single month. But when it comes to a mortgage, you're paying a much higher, it's an amortized loan, so you're paying the interest on the full balance. Simple interest, you're paying on essentially a smaller balance, or you're paying a certain portion of it. So loans that carry amortized interest are usually not really that good, but a mortgage, builds up your housing, your home loan history. If you're an investor, this is great news. But the next one on the list, car loan, then personal loan, then credit card debt. From best to worst, worst in my opinion is definitely credit card debt. Topics. Let's just get into a few other things really quick. Other factors include credit inquiries. So credit inquiries. Oh yeah, and also, in my opinion, any interest rate that is above 6% is pretty high to me. So something you definitely want to keep in mind is that, in my expert opinion, I would say anything that is above 6% is pretty high. Next factor on your credit report. Actually, let's just do a quick shout out. So Dion Landry said, "Yes, sir. The segment on business credit would be excellent. Absolutely." All right, credit inquiries. They have a low impact factor on your credit report or credit score. So every time you apply for new credit, it essentially leads to a hard inquiry. So try to avoid applying for too many credit cards or too many loans at the same time. Now, if you get a pre-approved loan or pre-approved credit card in the mail, they cannot issue you a hard inquiry. So anything that's pre-approved, that's a pretty solid one right there. The more inquiries, the lower the credit score. Don't apply for too much at the same time, or too much within certain gaps. And also, automatic credit limit increases don't affect your credit inquiries. Total accounts. The last factor on your credit score is total accounts. Total accounts have a low impact factor on your credit score. It's similar to the age of credit history, but this one takes into account both closed and open accounts. So age of credit history only factors in open accounts. As soon as you close an account, your credit history is wiped out as far as the age is concerned, but it still remains on your total account. The more total accounts you have, the higher your credit score. Remember, banks like to see a nice mix of credit that you have out there. So just a few things to keep in mind. Just a brief summary of that. Your credit score consists, or your credit report is the most important factor. But in order to determine your credit score, they use these factors, including credit card utilization, payment history, derogatory marks, age of credit history, credit inquiries, and last but not least, total accounts. And to conclude here, we'll just we'll just wrap up the segment in about 5 minutes or so. Your credit score can range from 300 to 850. The one thing to note, that's just one of your credit scores. I mean, you can have over 15 credit scores, to be honest. There's FICO, there's FICO 2.0, 3.0, 5.0. There's so many FICO scores out there. And then when you apply for an auto loan, it can have a different credit score from a home loan, then a credit card loan, then a personal loan. I mean, there's so many different credit scores you can have. A good credit score, according to multiple sources, is a 720. That is an excellent credit score. But a 700 is not bad at all. Trust me, if you have a 700 plus credit score, you're doing pretty good. The higher the score, the better chances of getting approved, and also the lower your interest rate is, potentially. In my opinion, a perfect credit score is not a good credit score, because when you have a perfect 850 credit score, it means that you're probably not utilizing loans to the best of your abilities. You're not maximizing the utility when it comes to leverage or the ability to borrow money. So always keep that in mind. I have a client who has an 850 credit score, but doesn't really have much to show for it. You can get free credit score or free credit report from Credit Karma. Unfortunately, Credit Karma sometimes it has delays, but it is free, and it at least gives you an idea of what you qualify for. Some credit cards offer free credit scores, so if you do get hit with a hard inquiry, please try to get a copy of your credit report, which, by the way, you should obtain a copy of your credit report at least minimum once a year. You can get a credit report from each of the bureaus for free at least once a year. So Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, you can get them for free. And any lender that causes a hard inquiry owes you a credit score or owes you a credit report. FICO score is usually the most accurate when it comes to credit scores. So something to keep in mind there. And watch out for fees. Fees can be pretty high when it comes to credit cards and things of that nature. In my opinion, the best credit card to have is one that has no annual fees, 0% introductory APR that can be renewed at any time, or relatively any time, a high credit limit, and offers reward points. When I was a kid, or when I was about 18, I didn't have a credit card. I didn't get a credit card until after college, when I was just about I believe I was either 23 or 24. That's when I got my first credit card. So I believe I believe I was 23 at the time. That's when I got my first credit card. Now imagine, I've spent a lot of money over my time. Imagine if I would have been using credit cards, paying it off, getting the rewards points, getting the intro. Chase, for example, they give you about $150 or so if you spent about $3,000 or so within the first 3 months. Imagine if you're doing all of this and you're getting points for this stuff. You're getting rewards points. I've been losing out on rewards points for a long time. It took my mom and a friend to tell me, hey, you might want to get a credit card, not only to build your credit score, but also to get you some reward points as well. So that's another reason why it's good to have credit cards. And some people say, oh, never use a credit card. I mean, it takes discipline. As long as you have that discipline, you have that mindset to be able to pay it off quickly. There's nothing wrong with swiping, paying it off, getting your rewards points, swiping. That's when you're using credit cards for you and not against you. So a credit card is a tool that can really, really damage you, or it can tremendously help you when it comes to money. So if you know you're gonna buy something anyway, why not use the credit card, pay it off using the cash that you were gonna use to buy it off, or buy the thing, and get the points while you're at it. You have to make smart financial decisions. Now, if you're not comfortable doing that, then I advise you stay away from that method and just put the credit cards somewhere in a shoebox, wherever you can't not see them. If you have problems using a credit card or abusing it, put them somewhere you cannot even see them. The best way to avoid using something, the best way to avoid an addiction is to stay away from it in the first place. So if you're addicted to smoking, for example, then probably stay away from cigarettes. Don't even look at it. If you're addicted to alcohol, you have alcohol problems, don't even look at the alcohol. If you even have the slightest sight, even a picture of it, Just get it away from you. Leave it alone. It's easier said than done, trust me. But it takes about 21 days to develop a habit. So in my opinion, those are some of the things that you should consider. I love this question right here, coming from Victor King. Big shout out. Thoughts about Dave Ramsey? I hate the guy, to be honest. I just don't think he gives good advice when it comes to certain aspects of money. Now, some of his debt payment programs are pretty good, but to tell a person, hey, don't buy a home using a loan until you've paid off all your debts and all that, I think is just not good advice. Why not tell that person while buying a home, pay off your cards, pay off your debt as well, because the home can help you build wealth over time. When it comes to wealth, you need to build it early and you need to build it often. So if anything, I feel like people like Dave Ramsey, Susie Orman, completely stay away from those folks, because they give you advice that, it helps you as far as feeling comfortable, but it's not something that's a wealth building strategy. It's more of a wealth, hey, let's just do what we can to pay off debt. Let's not really focus on investing. Let's try to save all of our money. It's just not, in my opinion, that's just slow path to building wealth. That's just slow track. That's like turtle. So that's like having a turtle versus, let's say, an eagle when it comes to wealth building. Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman are turtles, and people like Robert Kiyosaki and the strong wealth builders, they're more like eagles. They fly high and they want you to build wealth at a fast, rapid pace. Should you go out and be taking out all the loans in the world and doing all the no money down deals possible? Absolutely not. But you have to be building wealth, and I feel like their programs are more for people who've gotten themselves into trouble. When it comes to building wealth, you can start early. That's why it's important to start your kids early. Teach them these principles early so that they can avoid making the mistakes of others or yourself. We have to make sure we teach our kids early and often when it comes to building wealth. And I believe showing your kids somebody like Dave Ramsey is probably going to scare them from investing in the stock market or even in real estate. So that's my personal opinion when it comes to those folks. I appreciate what they do as far as getting people out of those deadly situations. But as somebody who's looking to take their wealth building seriously, I don't think you should be following advice. If you need somebody, I would advise somebody like Robert Kiyosaki, Mr. Rich Dad Poor Dad, Mr. Think and Grow Rich, people like that. Those are the folks you should be following. These Dave Ramseys, the Susie Ormans, they're more slow track wealth builders. They're not fast track. And some of the things they do contradicts the advice that they give anyway. So just personal advice when it comes to that. So we'll wrap up the segment. If no other questions, no other comments, I appreciate you guys for tuning in and for joining. Next week we'll be doing a segment talking about business credit, how to boost your business credit score, business credit report, things of that nature, and we'll do some general business tips as well if you have some more time. But definitely thank you all for tuning in to WGHC 98.3 FM, your voice, your music, your station. My name is Jeff Badu, and I look forward to continuously delivering you all some content. Thank you.
You're listening to WGHC 98.3 FM.
While you, but we are nothing friend from see the first time. After dressing skin, why you get anything you like? All right, then. In a skirt, our jeans are short shorts. Head raised when we walk past.